I'm going to begin by sewing a finial into the centre of this. Where a finial is really the end point, we're going to make it our start point for this design. I'm using the second largest finial, and you can use whichever size you like. It's up to you. The other thing you can do with a finial is use two finials, one, and then use another size. So we could have a different size finial coming over the top of that, which will give us an echo effect. We're going to now take the feathered leaf, and on this template we have some lines that are really important. There's a line that runs down through here. This is our centering line. This goes to the center of our feathers. It keeps our feathers running straight, so we don't have feathers going like this all over the place, which can look very strange. If we're working on a curve, I usually put a reference line in. It's all on our original video for feathers. Anything you can do with our original feathers, you can do with this feather. So we're going to use that reference line. I'm lining up my reference line, which says center here, and I'm going to stitch my first feather in place. This is it's only a narrow feather when it's finished, but it's quite nice for putting in borders. It could be an outline to a border with something else in there. Come back to here. I now have to come up and sew my next feather. We can do that by humping and bumping. We can do it by going up the spine. I'm going to hump and bump this one, so I'm going to slide my feather down, and my feather's got to come down. I'm using this reference line just marked on here, keeping this in place and this one here. So I've just slid the template down, and I'm going to sew the next feather. I'm going to come up to the top. I'm now going to sew back, and I'm going to sew back to that reference line on the template just here. I now have to slide my template across, and I'm going to slide it across here. My template is touching there, my reference line is in place here. Also the next feather. What happens with this feather is we get a beautiful outer edge to a row of feathers. We're going to come back down here, and we have to line up and get back down to where that feather meets. I have a line marked on this template. It's like a spine. I'm just going to run down there. I'm going to come back up. Stop here. We now have to slide back down again. We also have to keep that spine running along. So what we're doing here is building our spine at the same time as we're building our feathers. You could stitch this spine in place first if you wish, or you could do like I'm doing. I'm now going to look here. I want a foot spacing in here, and make sure my center reference line is in place, and we'll sew our next feather. And this is all I'm doing for this one. Then I'm going to sew the opposite side. So when we get back to where our feather touches the feather from before, we'll stop here, and I will sew the ends in. You could travel back if you wish, but I like to sew the ends in, and that is the first half of our feather complete. I'm doing the feather on the other side exactly the same as I did the first. Center reference line in place. Sewing around the feather. Back to that line that we actually had marked on the fabric. and then we'll travel down. I have to move the template across about an inch here, making sure this centre line is in place. It's not in place, I can see that from here, which means I have to sew a bit further down. This is putting my spine into the right place. I still need that little space there that gives me that 1/4 inch. I'm now in the correct position. And I'll sew the next feather. When we come up to here, we're going to backtrack again. Back down to that line we used before. And we're going to slide down again. Make sure that reference line is in the right place. We have to make sure that we travel down that spine all the way. Otherwise we're going to have floating feathers. I just move the template out. Come back in. You could have pre-sewn the spine in. Line it up again, centre line in place. We have to come a bit further. What this is doing is giving me my measurements for here. So I know I've got that 1/4 inch back there again. Centre line is in place. Come back around, this is the last feather on here. Back in, stop here, tie off the ends and the feather's finished. So our feather is finished, and this is just one way you can use the feather. You could do the same feathers on the opposite side, another finial in here. You could have a finial at the top, and that's our feathered leaf.